food and stuff from local producers. I found one in a town near me, and I walked in there and I made it a point to buy, a half a dozen things in there just because they were selling stuff from local farms and stuff in my area. And I sat in there and talked to them for over an hour. I mean, it was awesome because that's something you don't see anymore. And again, this whole dynamic is completely strange because if you think about even 50, 60 years ago, it was all local shops. It was all small family-owned businesses. But today, they've all been snuffed out. And guess what's moved in? Walmart, Dollar General. All these corporate-owned entities, they've taken over all these small businesses and stuff. So now when I see them, it just like everything else I'm talking about here, it fires me up. And it makes me really happy that there are people out there still providing for, storefronts for these local businesses and kind of giving them a platform. And I'm here to tell you that I'm getting fired up now about pretty much anything that is natural. Because if you haven't noticed, our natural world is under attack. It's being taken away. We've got all of this technological infrastructure going in, and I'm talking about data centers and, just industry in general. Pretty much, anything that makes products and stuff for us, because people, unfortunately, consume like mad. So there are a lot of industrial, complexes and stuff out there, and that continues to grow. But it's not even about that. It's now that, used to, you could walk down the street and you felt fairly safe. You felt like you had some autonomy and some privacy. But today, with all this surveillance and stuff going in, you don't really feel that way. Because even way out here in the middle of nowhere where I live, there are flock cameras going up. And it's not just Flock. You've got Axon and all these other different, surveillance companies that are putting stuff in. So now, anytime that I'm out where there is not that stuff, where I don't see solar farms and stuff that spread for thousands of miles, and I don't see giant factories and warehouses, it makes me really happy. It gets me fired up inside, and it gives me a small sliver of hope, and I feel this overwhelming sense of peace. And in a lot of cases, it makes me feel like I hit the lottery. And I'll give you a prime example of this. All right, this is the last example I'm going to give because this one was the most profound for me. And this happened last year.
Tom's just used Confused to sort his car insurance. He feels like the cat that got the cream.
See fish for tomorrow. Oh, cream. Double cream. That's coming home with me, that. Meow.
Insurance feels better when you've just used Confused.com.
I got the cream.
One oil brand gets recommended way more than any of the others, so I looked into it. Nicora is a family-run British brand since 2006.
This happened last year. So I've been living on this farm since 2009. I've owned this property since I think about 2006. So it's been a long time, about 20 years. And I cannot tell you the last time I saw a monarch butterfly. And I'm old enough to remember the National Geographic shows that used to come on where there were millions of these monarch butterflies that would, they would migrate, and there would be clouds of them in the sky going from, country to country or whatever they did. I remember this stuff when I was a kid. And this was a big thing because monarchs were very common. But like I mentioned, I haven't seen a monarch butterfly out here in as long as I can remember. And last year, I saw one. I walked outside, and my dog actually tried to bite it because she's always chasing stuff that's flying around in the air. She hates birds for some reason. So she runs at this monarch, and she tries to bite it out of the sky, and I screamed at her. I'm like, no, don't do that, Shawnee, no, that's bad. And I run over there, and I'm just like admiring this butterfly. It was as if I hit the lottery. It made my entire day. It made my whole month. It might have even made my whole year. Because, seeing something like that, something that was an integral part of my childhood because I grew up on a farm and they were everywhere, it was the most amazing feeling. And it brought me an overwhelming sense of joy. And while that brought me an overwhelming sense of joy, it's also kind of a nightmare if you really think about it, because that and all of this stuff I just talked about was once normal. But today, that is not normal anymore. And if you remember a couple years ago, they were always saying, the slogan or the whatever you want to call it, the big narrative was the new normal. Like, we have to accept this because this is the new normal. How many times did you hear that? I heard it pretty much every single day. And looking back on that, I'm like, I wonder if they were kind of preparing us for this. Maybe that was some kind of programming. Because this reality that we're living in now, where there are lines in the sky, where no one communicates, where everybody's on their phone, where certain bugs and animals and creatures and stuff that we saw throughout our childhood no longer exist, where all these things have changed and shifted, that has now been normalized. That is the new normal. And the old world that we remember, that doesn't even seem like it exists anymore, that is somehow not normal. So I often ask myself, was all of that new normal talk, all those slogans and stuff that we heard, was that just some kind of predictive programming to prepare us for this dystopia that we seem to be headed towards? And the more I think about this, the more it relates to that movie Elysium, if you've ever seen that with Matt Damon. I think about that movie all the time because they had those weird cyborg like robots and stuff in that movie, which seems to be the things that are kind of coming. They had those suits, the cyborg suits, where people kind of integrated themselves with technology. And if I remember right, I think they even had chips and stuff that were in the back of their head, their minds, that kind of helped them control their thoughts and maybe boosted the human performance. And doesn't that sound kind of very in line with what's happening right now? We have cyborg robots that are coming out. I think there's supposed to be like 30 million within the next couple years. We have the Neuralink, the chip that's supposed to go in our brain that's supposed to help us keep up with AI. We have all of this concrete and all of this infrastructure and these utopias, you know, these 15-minute cities and stuff that are supposed to be utopias that are being built. It all sounds like Elysium. So is that where we're headed? Is that the new normal? And is all this stuff from our past just going to be that? Our past? We'll never see that stuff again? I honestly don't know the answer to that, but I will say that the shift that I've been seeing, where some of these things from our past are coming back, I think that is a sign. I think it's a sign that this dystopia and the future that we're headed towards, the entire narrative around that is starting to fracture. I think people are starting to see the direction we're headed, and they're realizing that it is in our human nature not to align with that, because throughout our entire existence, that has not been our reality. So people are pushing back. And I think people are either consciously or maybe even subconsciously bringing this old stuff back into our lives, because that is the stuff that aligns with us as a species. It is not the concrete. It is not the technology. It is not, getting rid of the natural world. It is not keeping our faces stuck in our phones and not talking to one another face to face. It is not having human interaction. None of that stuff is natural to us as a human race. And I'm going to continue to get fired up and excited about seeing people outside. I'm going to continue to get excited about seeing kids playing in the yard and seeing butterflies fly around on my farm. And all these things from our past that are now not only being neglected, but they've kind of been forgotten. They've kind of been snuffed out. And I am personally going to continue to make it a point to adopt more of these things into my life and live a life that is more in alignment with that kind of stuff, because that is what aligns with me. And I'm sure that's not going to be what aligns with everybody. Maybe some people like this technology. Maybe some people like the AI. Maybe some people like the concrete. And don't get me wrong, these things do have their place. AI and technology and computers and the internet and all this stuff, even social media, it all has a place. It can be a very useful and powerful tool if it's used properly. But that's the question. Is it going to be used properly? When it comes to surveillance, that's going to be used to fight crime, or is supposed to be used to fight crime. But is that actually what it's being used for? Or is there the potential for it to be used for things that are much more nefarious? Is there potential for it to be used to control the general population? And maybe that's the part of the narrative that people are seeing, and that's the reason things are starting to fracture, because people are seeing that these things can be a powerful tool. They can be a complement to our lives, but they're not being used in that way. And maybe that is the thing that is uniting people. Maybe that's the thing that's waking people up. And maybe that's the thing that is going to unravel this dystopia that we seem to be headed towards. And if it is, maybe we still have a fighting chance at creating a future that's a little more bright and a lot less dystopian.
I've got 20 seconds to show you this amazing old maze house. You ready? Let's go.